Proverbs 31:30. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Hey y'all, and welcome back to Coffee with Kin. So, for those of you who do not know, today is my birthday. So, today's episode is my birthday episode, and I thought, what would be more fitting for a birthday episode than sharing my life story with you guys, Specifically, I'm going to be sharing my testimony today. Just like how I've gotten to where I'm at in life, and more specifically, like how the hardships and how relying on God has gotten me to where I am today. In today's episode, I'm probably going to be like very vulnerable and just sharing certain things with y'all that not many people know about me. Um, but I really want to create a sense of community and vulnerability with uh, Coffee with Kin. And like, if any of y'all ever go through things and you want to talk about it with someone, like, literally reach out to me. I would be more than happy to have a conversation with you. So let's just dive right into my testimony. I was born the youngest of 4 girls, and I think being the youngest in a family, there's a lot that comes along with it. Um, you kind of always have like expectations of like, and just like the comparison of comparing yourself to your older siblings. Even if you don't want to, it's just like inherently there. And so I feel like I've always kind of grown up with that. But there was also like a good side of that in being able to learn from my older siblings and like see aspects of their life and where they went wrong, and like, okay, I'm gonna, fix those things in my life. But I was baptized as a child in the Catholic faith. Going to going to mass every weekend has always been a part of my life. I began altar serving in 3rd grade, which, if you're not Catholic or you're not familiar with that, it's basically like where you just help the priest in like all kinds of little different things throughout the mass. And I loved altar serving, literally loved it so much. Sometimes I still miss it. Like, I'm like, oh, miss that. Because I actually had such a fun time doing that. And it also taught me just like so many good life lessons of like showing up for mass, responsibility, like loyalty. And also, I feel like during that time period when I was altar serving, I was like so devout in my faith. Um, but also in a way, just like following the motions of like, I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I've been going to mass. And up until like that point of just like probably like high school, like I really had not faced any hardships. Like, honestly, life was just cruising by for me. But I think high school was kind of where the road started to get a little bit rockier, and not everything was, I think the first hardship I ever faced like in life was just with friendships. And growing up, I was super 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 introverted and quiet. Like, I feel like in college I've come out of my shell a lot, and I actually enjoy talking with people, but growing up I was so quiet. Like, I remember in middle school, this one guy in one of my classes, he was like, "Honestly, like, I thought you just, like, couldn't speak," because I was just always so quiet. Like, I really kept to myself. Um, and so I feel like in high school, I kind of just struggled with friendships and, like, standing up for myself. I really allowed people to just kind of walk all over me. Um, and I feel like my sophomore year, I was really just, like, super low. Um, I kinda just, like, didn't know anything about me. Like, I was friends with people who, like, weren't really super supportive, and, like, I really was not close with God at this time either. Like he was there, but I was never really like relying on him for anything. I just feel like my sophomore year of high school, I was just kind of all over the place. I was just like, just kind of getting by in life, you know? And I think towards like my senior year of high school for sure, I really found friendships that were super good for me, and now I'm at a place where I have such loving friends that if I would have told my sophomore year self, like, leaving those friendships, you're going to have new ones that are even better than you could ever imagine. But I felt very alone, and there were several moments in high school where I felt very alone. Um, so I was kind of, dealing with that throughout high school. But I think the biggest moment of my testimony, which I always get emotional speaking about this, so I'm really going to try not to. Um, but it's like a moment that literally altered my life. And it was a moment of like feeling like your world was just like flipped upside down because I had really never dealt with anything that was like super, super difficult or super hard. And during my junior year of high school was when we found out that my dad had stage 4 thyroid cancer. And I think initially I just like didn't understand why. I kind of felt super envious towards a lot of people. Like they're not having to deal with this like problem. Like why did it happen to my family? Um and I think when I first found out, I felt easier to cope with the situation by just acting like it didn't exist. I was just like, you know, but like I have a really good relationship with my dad. He is such an amazing man, truly. He is such a symbol of faith and has always been so supportive for me and all of my siblings. And so hearing this news was just like, no, like why, And I remember like also going back to just being like the youngest. I felt like during this time all of my older siblings, like they obviously are all either married or about to get married. And so they all had like someone to kind of like really turn to. And I remember just like being kind of envious of that, of like, I want my dad to be able to dance with me at my wedding day, but also I'm so single. So, like, I don't know. I kind of struggle with that sometimes, still to this day, of just that thought. Um, but sorry. Whew. I remember being in Baton Rouge when he was having it was a super long surgery. I can't remember the exact amount of hours, but it was a long surgery. And he was having it, I think they were like removing the tumor that was like on his thyroid or in his throat or something. And during that time, me and my sister, we were at Our Lady of the Lake in Baton Rouge. Love that hospital, by the way. Um, so obviously they had like a chapel, and me and Claire went to the daily mass there. And this is such a like powerful moment for me because I remember so like I felt God's presence so abundantly. Like it's like he was literally there. And it's like he was just literally wrapping his arms around my heart of like I have you, because it was such a hard time of obviously my dad's going through the surgery, and surgeries are so always there can be so many complications. And me and Claire, we go to mass, and there was barely anyone in the chapel, by the way. And after, this religious sister like came up to me and Claire, and she was just like, like, what are y'all doing here? Um and she kind of just like consoled us and was like, your dad's he's going to be okay. He's going to be okay. And I remember just wanting to like literally sob in that moment because I needed to hear that so badly. And we went back into the waiting room, still waiting, of like, he's still not done. And I had my AirPods in and I was blasting worship music, but specifically the song Waymaker over and over and over again. And in this song, there's a line, and it goes like, your name is above disease, your name is above cancer. And love that song still to this day. And my dad's surgery ended up going well. He recovered. He had a long journey after that of having to go through radiation, um, until they eventually, like, said, okay, you're in remission. And still to this day, he has been in remission. And I pray every day for him that he continues to stay like that, because cancer is just such a scary thing. And it's just hearing the word, like, literally triggers me. Um, And sometimes I kind of get upset when people are kind of insensitive with it and just like kind of throw that word around, um because it's something that totally altered my life, even though it wasn't me directly. Like, having experienced that, like, my dad having it was such like a, like, close to home moment. And I always think about like people who are the family members of someone who have cancer. And uh yeah, I remember, like, literally the only thing that got me through this time period was rooting myself in the word daily. Like, Jesus is the reason I was able to get through that, and the reason my dad was able to get through that too. And having this happen, I realized, like, wow, God is the only thing that matters on this earth. It's like all my other, like, trivial issues and problems and insecurities of like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna wear today? I'm like, my dad has cancer. Like, I don't need to be worried about these trivial things. And it was just such a testament to God's power. And I truly believe that God performed a miracle on my father, and that is the reason he's still here today. The survival rate of stage 4 thyroid cancer is very, very low. Um, and also, like, most people would have totally lost the ability to speak, and my dad's in one of the 1% that was able to continue speaking through that time period, like 1%. And so God is amazing, and he's so powerful, and he has just been so loving to me and my family. And this moment totally altered the trajectory of my life. I really realized the power of God, just like power, and the power of the Eucharist, like being in that mass, and when the Eucharist was being consecrated and feeling God so present, knowing that his hand was over the situation. I wish every single person listening could just be able to feel that. And if you have felt that, like, that's why I want to share this with people. Is so often I see people or hear people about problems they're going through, and I just wish they could feel the love of God, and the Eucharist is such a beautiful representation of that. I'll probably do a whole nother episode on that. So, yeah, so that was that time period of my life. Well, flash forward to my freshman year of college, and by this point, my dad was like much more healthier, so I wasn't really worried about that anymore. And life was going fine, but I started talking to this guy. Okay. For context, I was talking to a guy who was talking to 20 other girls at the same time. But I really was like, no, he's mine. Like, I'm going to change him. We have something so special. It was never anything official, which is why I just like call it a situationship. But I was always feeling very like dejected in this relationship with this guy, and like he was always choosing other people over me or other things over me. making me always just question myself. And I think I literally placed this guy like in the position of God in my life. Like, I was not even really thinking about God. I was always thinking about this guy. Like, how can I get him to like me more? You know? And so I kind of just started to grasp at things that just like were not God to fill this void. I was going out every single weekend. Like, every single weekend. Like, I think it's totally okay and normal to go out with your friends every once in a while, but I was going every single weekend, right? Just every weekend, and I was just doing that to like feel something. And also typically this man would be at the bar, and so I was always wanting to go out, right? Like, oh, I want to see him. And everyone at that time period probably just saw me as like, oh my goodness, that girl is, she's always going out, always partying, like. But sometimes I look back at that moment of my life and I just wish there would have been someone who just like asked me like, "Are you okay?" Like, genuinely, like, just, "Are you okay?" Because the reason I was doing that was because I just felt like such a shell of a human, and I was just trying to force this guy who made it clear to me all the time that he was not interested. I was just trying to force it, and, I was very much led on in that, though, and, uh, I think after things ended with him, I realized my mistake of just how much I had drifted from God, and realized how much time and energy I had put into this boy, and just totally like withdrawn from God. So after this situationship ended, which was honestly, guys, like, it lasted a really long time. Uh so I think about in like July of 2024 was when I really started to do like internal work and work with like re getting back to that close intimate relationship with God. And that's really what I've been trying to do now. And because honestly, like, this situationship with this guy also was low key very life altering too, because I was just, there's a lot more that happened with it, just in the sense of like, it was always so back and forth. And I think when you place so much of your identity and worth in a boy, like, having that taken away, it's like, who am I, you know? And so I had to really do like self evaluation of like, okay, all you're hyper focused on is boys and trying to get a boyfriend and what they think about you. And so now I'm at a point in my life where I am once again in unison with God and understanding like He's all that matters once again. And also, I'm very much in a different mindset in my state of singleness of knowing that if that's all I'm hyper fixated on, like, there's so much more I can be doing and working on myself during this time than just like flocking to the next guy who comes knocking on my door. And it makes me think of another song. I love songs, guys. I love music, and it's called If It Wasn't for Jesus. Or If It Weren't for Jesus. I'm actually gonna Google it just to make sure. And it's really a testament. That is the reason I'm here today. It's the reason my dad's a walking miracle. How honestly I'm a walking miracle of how God can change you. He can take you out of the lowest moments of your life when you feel like the earth is falling down around you. He can save you from your anxiety, which I've also struggled with like my whole life. And he can just take every broken thing and make it whole and new again. And so I just encourage you, through listening to my ups and downs of my life testimony, I just encourage you, like, if you resonated with any moments of what I spoke about, or if you're just in a moment in life where you feel like God's not really present, or like your everything is falling down around you, I think God uses those moments to really find you and change you more intimately than any other moment in your life. And looking back at my life this thus far, I'm grateful for the hardships. I'm grateful for that situationship. I'm grateful. It sounds bizarre, but I'm grateful for the cancer because God has brought good things from all of them. Even though they're terrible situations and bad things have come along with it, it's all a part of a testimony. And I always believe that God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. So even if you're not really feeling God's presence or you're really struggling, like just remember that and remember that God is with you. He feels your struggle, He feels the sadness in your struggle, and He wants to save you from that. And this is my testimony of how I've gotten to where I am in life. And I think with turning 20, I just have been really reflecting on, you know, my life. And I wanted to really share that with y'all because I know a lot of these things I talked about, really no one knows about. And if you're going to be listening to me through a podcast, I think it's only right that you understand how I've gotten to where I'm at and why I view things in the way that I view them. So I hope all of you have a beautiful day. Have the best month of March ever. It's my favorite month ever, and it's the best month. And I am just always thinking of y'all. And like I said, I'm always here for you guys. Don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. Bye.